Welcome to Worship Artistry, I'm Nick. Today we're going to be looking at how to dial in some tone, just some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. It's nothing groundbreaking, but a lot of people have asked like, hey, how do you dial in your tone? So I'm going to teach you that a little bit. Just I'm not going to teach you how to use what we're going to be using the Quad Cortex today, but I'm not going to teach you how to do that. I'm not going to teach you how to use a helix or anything like that. You can look up a million videos on YouTube for that. All I'm going to be showing you is like some thoughts that I have, some tips and tricks as I build a patch from the ground up for Worship Artistry here. I'm going to be doing a stereo patch, but all of what I'm going to teach you should translate to amps and pedals or helix or fractal, head rush. It doesn't matter what it is. It should translate because I'm not going to be specific to the effects within here or anything like that. It's going to be very general. So let's go ahead and just dive in. So as you can see here, we are in the Cortex control and there's nothing going on right now. Basically, I'm just going to set it up how I would typically set it up. And you can set this up on yours however you typically do this. This is just how I do mine. There's not a right or wrong reason, I don't think. Just do it however you like, and this is for stereo. So don't worry about this too much. But choosing amps, let's go with like a Drewby kind of setup, like some Fender and like a Voxy kind of sound. How about the UK C30 Top Boost? I'd venture to guess that that's probably an AC30. And we're gonna add another amp, looking for like a Deluxe or like a Princeton or, actually I think I like this, the US SPR Normal. What is that? Super Reverb 65 is what it is. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and add a cab. Let's, for the AC30 type thing, let's just add like an AC30 type cab, and they happen to have one. It's the 212 UK C30 65. So let's go ahead and find that right chair, and we'll mess with the microphones here in just a second. I'm just going to choose like a V30 type of cab for this Super Reverb. With I like V30s for some reason. I think they sound nice with the 57. And actually, moving on to the microphones, if they get, yep, cool. I have the option for a condenser 414, and let's see here, yeah, again. So I have a 57 and a 414 on both of them, and the only reason why I like to do that is because that's what I have in real life. I don't have a 414, I have a 214. But kind of similar idea, and it's just, again, option paralysis for me. I don't like it. Some people absolutely love to just tweak and tinker. I like to just find a good sound, and hey, this is my sound. I like it. So as we see what that sounds like, we'll start dialing it in with some headphones. I've not monitored anything yet. I've just chosen the amps and the cabs that I like, and then I'll tweak some things. One of the very most important things that I try to tell anybody when dialing in stuff digitally or with real amps or whatever, know the space you're in. When you're tweaking stuff, if you have live monitors, but if you don't know the space, use some headphones, but use headphones that you understand, not something that's like super bass heavy and then you're going to dial it like a ton of bass out because it sounds good in there. But something very flat, that's what I would suggest, I like these ones. These are Shure's. I don't know which model or anything. They're closed backs, but I've had them for years and I really like them. I know the sound of them. I've mixed so many different things with them, and that's important, I think. So if you're not a mixing like engineer or anything, you know, you can dial in your guitar tones, you can dial in the tones that you have, and then kind of understand what it's supposed to sound like. And then once you understand like the headphones, even if they are bass heavy, you should understand that those headphones are bass heavy and you don't need to dial in more bass or anything like that. Just as long, the biggest thing really is as long as you understand how things translate, that's really what matters. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter like how little you spent on them. It really matters if you understand what they're supposed to sound like. So that's how I dial in all of my sounds, is I always use these headphones. And then when I just play, I play through my studio monitors here. But I rarely tweak with the studio monitors, always with the headphones. All right, let's just hear what it sounds like first, and then we'll start tweaking. So this is just the amps. Well, actually, before we do that, let's make sure they're actually in stereo. Just because we have two doesn't mean they're panned or anything. And that's another thing that you should decide. Do you want them fully panned, or do you want like a, like 60% pan, 40%? What do you want? I like it fully panned with this, so let's just check that out. I mean, that's fine. I'm on my bridge pickup. Let's check the neck. I mean, the middle. That's why I like to really, it sounds a little like just chimier, and I have an understanding that it's going to sound a little warmer here on the neck and a little brighter on the bridge. That's all right. Let's go ahead and just mess around with some of the microphones. With the condenser over here, the 414, I typically like to have it more towards the center, so it just kind of has more of like a full sound, but it's higher pitched. If you go further away, it's going to be more dull. You go towards the center, it's going to be more piercing. And with the 57, I do like to have it out a little bit, just because the 57 is a little bit more harsh sometimes, but I will leave it here roughly and just kind of see how it sounds. But I always typically try to put this one in a little bit, and then I'll mess with certain things as I'm dialing it in. There's no like, all right, here it is, unless I've done it like 20 times already, so let's check out the Fat Boy Zilla V30. The condenser mic's on, so we'll move that over a little bit, leave the 57 where it's at, and just hear that. Now let's check moving the 57 a little bit. I moved the 414 away from where I like it, just so you could kind of hear. It gets a lot more dull. It's sometimes hard to pick that out, but man, it really translates down the line. So here's the 57. Let's move that around. That's fine. Another thing, once I dial that in, I try to check my levels. And I have something, with Universal Audio, it's called Console, and it gives me levels of everything that's leaving my computer. I have, individual channel levels and so forth. If you have something like that, great, use it. If you don't, I'm sure there's many tools out there you can download to have levels or check your levels. But just because you can hear it doesn't mean it's loud enough. And just because you can hear it, it might be way too loud. So knowing like the impedance of your headphones and where that's supposed to be, because when I look at my Apollo, which you can't see, well, it's right here actually, I have to turn it up a lot, but I understand that it's not going to be a big deal because that's just like my master volume, and I'm checking out certain levels. I'm trying to hit a certain level, and on mine I go for it's a number. It's just 9, and it's just right under, like, there's green, yellow, and red, and it's just right under yellow. And so when I turn on my overdrives, it allows me to go into yellow a little bit, and then I never peak. And then that's another way I know, like, I'm not gonna be way too hot for the front of house person, or something like that. But that's another beautiful thing about the digital modelers. You have a master volume out, really. It's just this big knob right here and nothing. So, just that if you need be. But also another trick too is, like, talk to the front of house person, is the gain set on the board just jacked up. So gain structuring is very important when doing all of these things. So again, just because you can hear it doesn't mean it's loud enough. And right now it's not loud enough because we're hitting like 12 or 15 or something, and I want to be at 9. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go into the amps and I'm going to just start adjusting some of these things, but not EQ it yet. I'm just looking for level stuff. So we're going to adjust the output roughly, and we'll just see. That's pretty close. So that'll be just fine. And so dialing in these amps a little bit now, I really don't mind this sound. It's a good clean, like a bass tone. So I probably won't do much with it, but take some bass out just because I naturally don't like so much bass. And when I say so much, it's barely any. But that seems to help quite a bit. Now let's toggle this bright switch on the Fender. I like that. That really made it come to life so you can hear it a little bit better on the right side. But I'm gonna take a little bit of the treble out, and I'm only gonna bump like the volume a little bit. And the volume over here is gonna give you a little bit more grit to it. Cool. So I already know this is in phase, but I'm gonna show you how I check that like it's in the proper phase, because you know, if I turn the phase on, it could be better. If I turn it off, it could be better, but I already know it's good. So to check that, just put everything up the middle again, and then toggle your phase switch. So I was wrong, and now it's in phase, so now it's on. But that's the thing, see, it sounded like it was in phase to me, but what I'm hearing and what you heard is like when it was off, it sounds real strange, and one of them usually should be better. Sometimes when you flip phase, it's hard to tell, so just pick one. But if you don't check it, at least sometimes the effects get a little weird once you've recorded it and stuff, and like it gets real strange. So now we're in phase properly. I think that sounds pretty dang good for just a good bass tone. Now, another thing I like to do is I'm setting this up so that way I could have like my compressor, a couple overdrives, and then a tremolo. I like to have tremolo in mono. I don't care about the panning kind of stuff. If I do that, I'll do it with another pedal somewhere down after the amps. When I play real amps, just a side note, I like to go into the amps, but for some reason in modeling, I like to go wet effects after the amps. And so we'll put like delays and a couple reverbs over here, and then like an EQ block. That's where the real magic happens. All right, so the next thing we're gonna add is a compressor. Add whatever compressor you would like to add. I like the 87 one. It's based on an 1176 by UA Audio. It can be a little noisy here. We'll turn that input down. And these settings, like, this is a wild setting to me. That's like a ratio of 12. No, we'll bring that back down to 4. The attack's way too much for me. We'll bring that down, bring this down. Basically how I like to look at the attack and release, you want the attack fast, you want the release a little slow, so that way when you hit your note, it's there, and then it releases slowly, so it's not like on, off, on, off, on, off. And we'll just kind of hear how it sounds. We may need to take some input out, maybe need to put some makeup gain, but I like to just have it level with the compressor off and then on, and then just kind of juice it a little bit to give it a little bit more of a pristine sound. So here it is. here, my compressor doesn't do much. I don't like for it to do much. I use the mix knob kind of like how any other pedal would have a blend knob, or like it's kind of like 50-50 how I view it. So it's doing something. It's not doing much. It just really sweetens it a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and set the noise gate. What's nice about it on the Quad Cortex is just right here, so you don't have to have another block being used. It's so nice. Anyway, let's add a pitch shift, because that's what I like to add first in my chain. Yeah, we'll just do that. It's 100% mix, and yeah, it's like a pog. I like that. And then what I like for overdrives is typically like a clon kind of thing. And if I have that, I like to have that first. And then I'll have like a blues breaker or something like that. And then like a boost. On my pedal board, I like to have a boost, overdrive, overdrive, boost. But for this, we're only gonna do 3. So we'll add a clon kind of style overdrive. And I believe they call that the myth drive. And then we'll add a blues, Brit blues. I think that's a blues breaker. And then anything that says boot, right there. We'll try it out. Okay, so we'll just dial in one at a time. You can see here the gain is ridiculously high. A lot of people will just have it and, you know, just rip roar. All right, cool, that's great. Let me show you what it sounds like with all of these on, because I'm gonna set these up how I do it, and I stack overdrives. That's why I have like 4 or 5 usually. I don't like to just have one overdrive, and if I do that, it's very different. Like it's very like a heavy or a fuzz or something. So yeah, here we go. We'll turn them all on as they come in, and this is what it sounds like. It's a bit muddy to me, like sounds fine. It's like, yeah, that's rock and roll, but I don't like that. I like clarity. I like to be able to hear things, not just like this kind of wall of sound. And I think that's where a lot of people have a lot of issues, is just creating that. And so let's look at the myth drive here. The gain's so high to me. Let's just cut that in half. With this one, the blues breaker, let's cut that by about half. With the exotic boost, let's turn that all the way down, because I don't want any gain from that boost or anything. And I don't really want any bass or too much treble. Let's just cut it out a little bit. We'll turn it up. So let's check out the myth drive as it is. We just turned the gain down by half. Pretty close. So that's how I do it. It's just it's so simple. It seems so stupid to me, but I just click it on. All right, it's too loud. Turn it off, and I try to make everything unity, and then I'll turn everything on, and as you'll see here. But so let's move on to this. What is this? The Brit blues, probably blues breaker. So let's just see what it sounds like. Very quiet. That sounds pretty good to me. I like that one because it just sounds a little different. The myth drive to me sounds a little bit more open. It sounds a little bit more muffled, but together they mix. And that's what I'm looking for, is stuff that mixes well. So let's go on to this boost and see what it sounds like. It's the Exotic Z boost. That's probably like a, I don't know, exotic pedal. Yeah, I mean, it's boosting it. That's what I want. And it sounds to me like it's a little bit more low end heavy, which is good, because here's something, it's a little pro tip. Don't have your rhythm sound be the same as your lead sound if you do both guitars. Now, I'm trying to kind of really have this be like an electric guitar 2 kind of sound, but how I dial everything in is always going to be just in case I'm gonna play lead, because electric guitar 2 does some really cool. It can do some really cool like single note things with arpeggiated stuff. And if you're up really too high and you have the wrong overdrive on, and it's just really piercing for more stuff down here, it's not gonna sound good. I learned this by my. I was a worship pastor, leader, youth pastor at the time, and the sound engineer person, he was, he'd always like, man, he'd have just this huge low pass filter on my guitar, and all the high end would just go away. And so I would always just turn it off, and he'd be like, it's too piercing. And I was like, I like it, because I only ever worried about dialing in my tone down here. Now, when I do that, I'll go up here and be like, and like, that doesn't sound too high to me. So I try to do both, and I find a good mix. So try that. Just try to find a good mix between your pickups with how it sounds down here and how it sounds up in this register as well, because you don't want it sounding way too high. You don't want it piercing people's ears, and you don't want the low pass filter just cranked, because that doesn't sound good either. So I think that exotic sounds just fine with a little bit of bass added. Of course, you can go in and change everything, and we're gonna add an EQ block at the very end again, and it's gonna sound really, really nice. We'll just shape it a little bit. All right, so kicking on our overdrives, our gain section here, we're just gonna turn the myth drive on, because that's kind of like an always on kind of thing for me, unless I'm doing like some real funk chords. That's why I like a clean amp, really. I kind of go to edge breakup, but not really. That's why I like having the boost. If I'm not gonna have the myth drive on, the boost is just a... It just drives it a little bit more. But anyway, so here's the myth drive, and then I'll kick on the boost so you can see that. Now here's the British blues, the blues breaker type thing. That is all my gains. That's with the compressor on, that's with the myth drive, the blues breaker, and with the boost. I think that sounds really nice. And what I'm listening for is like the kind of when everything turns on. You know, when you get too much gain, a lot of times it just gets a little ridiculous. But how I like to set it up, gain is very low. And when you're stacking things, that's the key. Gain is so low. You don't need a bunch of gain. You don't want a bunch of gain, because what gain really does is add a bunch of compression. And so you're just compressing it and compressing it and compressing it further with more gain. And a lot of times that sounds really, really bad. And just like not good squishy. Like there's some good squishy sounds, but that's not nice. And then with like EL84 type tubes like a Vox, I think that sounds even worse. So you need to just throw less gain into that. I'm not a huge Vox fan anymore. I really like Fender Marshall stuff, but I love the Vox Fender sound for worship. But let's throw a tremolo on. That's such a simple thing. It's literally just tremolo, and then I like to sync it, and then I'll put it to like a dotted 16th or 16th note or something like that. So here it is. That sounds just fine for me. All right, moving on to delays. how I do delay, it's simple anymore. I used to get really in depth with it and be like, all right, so this is the thought process. No, I don't care anymore. It delays things, it repeats it, it echoes, whatever you want to call it. So I have a dual delay always on. Right after that, I'll put, let's see here, a tape delay, a stereo one, and then I'll do at the very end of those, I like to do a reverse delay. And so I think that sounds really nice because it just kind of washes everything together. And so let's just dive in. And these are so simple. I do a quarter and dotted eighth on my dual delay always. And then if you have the option, I like to link my feedback on these just so it's the same. This is what that looks like or sounds like. Moving on to the tape delay, I'm just going to have that as a quarter note. Nothing serious with that. No ping-ponging, just right up the middle, and this is what that sounds like. Whoop. We'll turn down the feedback a little bit. I don't want too much from that. I can hear like 5. We'll turn the mix down even more. Yeah, that's fine. Now for the sauce, the reverse delay. We're gonna just turn that to the same thing as we did for the dual delay, a dotted eighth and a quarter. We will link the feedback as well because I like to have the same for these. It's going to be just a little bit more feedback than the first dual one, and the mix is going to be a little low. I don't want to like necessarily hear this too much. I just want to feel it more than like be the prominent figure. So here's what it sounds like. All right, now let's turn all of them on, see what that sounds like. I like that. That's very fun. Okay, that's how I set up my delays. It's very simple. Now we're just going to add a reverb. And I'm just going to do a modulated one. I like modulated hall kind of sounds. For worship, I like just a always on kind of a big one. I do, if I have enough space, I like to have a very small plate. But that's rare that I just use only that. So if I run out of DSP, I just choose the bigger one. And then I like to have another reverb that does something fun like shimmer. And this one, I don't like the shimmer really by Neural, but you can get very usable sounds that I do actually like. But right off the bat, I don't really like. Sounds very lush. It's like very deep, but it also just kind of sounds like I don't know, a little too bright, a little too fake to me. So literally the only thing I do is just turn the mix down, decay up, and brighten it down. Yeah, that's it. And so here's this now. I like that. So let's turn on the modulated and turn off the shimmer. So here's the modulated by itself. I've not touched it yet. All right, so that's a little bright for me. Let's just turn some things. The low pass we'll take and cut that down a little bit. That's all right, I like that. Now let's try them both. Yeah, you hear at the very end of that, I'm not sure why I just did this, but at the end of that, it just really, you can hear the shimmer, and it sounds very neat. So let's turn on all the delays, and we have the modulated on and the shimmer on. was just really feeling it, getting a little tasty, but also not very tasty. It kind of sounded bad. My playing, not the effects. I think those effects sound wonderful together. So let's make sure everything's translating. We have like almost everything on. I don't have the drives on. I don't care about that. But now what I look at before I add the EQ is, do I need to adjust levels at all again? So here. It's just fine. One of the amps has a little bit more headroom, it sounds like, but when you have your initial attack, your pick attack, the level's just the same. Here's the EQ block. Let's check that out. All right, so adding a 9-band EQ, I like doing that because right away, I mix for how I'm going to be playing live, always. I don't need a bunch of this low end. You know, the bass is gonna hang that out, but I want low end sounds, but I don't need to have a bunch of mud down there. So let's take some of the low mids, right? So this is very low stuff down in here, and then some low mids here. We'll take those out. I like to bump around 500, not by much. Let's just do a dB. And then 1K as well, because that's like in between of 800. That's a good mid boost kinda. And then around 2K, yeah, I like to do that. 4K, just a little, and then around 8K on this one. I like to bring that down a bit with the 16K as well. I don't get too wild with taking things out because I want it to still sound good and have good dimension to it, but I take 8K, 16K out on this because the typical speaker can't really handle past 5 or 6K anyway. So all of the pristineness of the digital stuff is so cool, and you can have that. I don't necessarily like it. I want it to sound more like an amp, so I typically make it sound worse, right, by taking some things out. But I think that will sound pretty nice. Here, let's check it out. That sounds just fine for me. So when I was toggling it back and forth, my main goal isn't like, all right, it's on, you can hear it. All right, it's off, you can hear it. It's totally different. No, I liked the main tone, so I don't need to shape it that much. I just want to cut a few things out that I know are going to be muddy, and the high stuff that I know, again, way up here, it's going to sound way ridiculous and way too piercing. So I shape it more for the mid-range because that's kind of, you know, that is where the guitar lays in the mix. But yeah, if your amps sound good and your cab selection, your mic selection, whatever, if you're happy with that, you don't need to add that EQ block. I do it because it shapes it just a little bit further. But that's one thing too. Just because you have all of these tools doesn't mean you have to use all of them. It's great to have them. It's great to know how to use them, and that's key too. Really learn it. Really learn what that thing does. Not just, all right, I'm notching it out at 65 hertz. Well, what does 65 hertz, if you take all that out, what does it do to your guitar? Try it out, figure that out. Don't be afraid to move anything. You know, look at this little switch right here. This means go back. A lot of, if not all of, every editor I've ever used, you know, on the computer for HX Edit or Quad Cortex here, it has like an undo button, or you can go back and change stuff. It's digital. It's you can't really hurt it unless you're going to take it like a hammer to it. And why would you do that? But I really hope that was helpful. If it was, please leave a comment below. I can try to help you with any of the other ones. I may not know like the actual terms for that unit, but it really should translate. There's a compressor, there's drives, there's amps, there's cabs, there's delays, there's reverbs, there's EQ blocks, and it all does the same exact thing. It may just be called something a little different. So if you like this, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and make sure you ring that bell to be notified, because we're putting out a bunch of this content lately. We're putting out a bunch of EG2 stuff. We're getting ready to put out some soloing or EG1 kind of things. And then also, like, how do we kind of stick around in the same spot using the triads we've learned? with a lot of song context type of things. We have listened to you all, and we love to listen to you all, and all the comments that we've gotten. Thank you so much for them. But until next time, we will see you in the next video. Bye.